My boyfriend quit his job on a Tuesday. Ryan came home unusually cheerful that night. He opened a beer, asked about my day, and made pasta. Nothing about him suggested he had made a decision that affected both of us. After dinner, he leaned back in his chair and said, "I finally did it." I thought he meant he had applied for one of the jobs he had shown me. Then he said, "I resigned." I put my fork down. "You resigned?" "Yeah, today." He smiled. "Last day is Friday." For a few seconds, I genuinely wondered whether I had forgotten an entire conversation. Did we talk about this? We've been talking about it for months. We've been talking about you wanting to leave. That's not the same thing. His smile faded. Ryan said he did not want another corporate job. He wanted to build something of his own. For the previous year, he had been posting videos about marketing, outdoor brands, photography, and creator strategy. A few had done well. Nothing huge, but enough that people occasionally messaged him for advice. He believed there was a business there. Maybe there was. That was not what bothered me. I asked, "How long can you cover your expenses without income?" He said, "That's what I wanted to show you." 10 minutes later, he emailed me a spreadsheet called 6-month runway. Ryan had always loved spreadsheets. This one had tabs. There was a content schedule, estimated audience growth, possible sponsorship income, equipment purchases, software subscriptions, travel ideas, and a month-by-month projection. He had money set aside for a new camera lens, newsletter software, advertising, and 2 industry trips. His savings would also cover his car payment and the other costs he considered necessary to launch the business. Then I found the household section. Beside rent was my name. Utilities my name. Groceries my name. Internet my name. For 6 months, I scrolled back up. "Where is your share of the apartment?" Ryan leaned over my shoulder. "During the runway period, you cover the fixed household stuff." Not could, would. When did I agree to that? That question mattered because our finances had never worked that way. We had been together almost 4 years and living together for 2. We kept separate personal checking and savings accounts, plus 1 household account. Every month, we both transferred our share into it for rent, utilities, groceries, internet, and renter's insurance. Personal expenses stayed personal. I earned more than Ryan, but neither of us had ever treated the other person's money as automatic backup. Ryan had been miserable at work for months. I knew that. His company had reorganized twice, his boss micromanaged him, and he hated spending more time reporting on campaigns than running them. I had supported him leaving. I had encouraged him to apply elsewhere, freelance, or find something better. I had never agreed to finance 6 months of unemployment. Ryan exhaled like I was getting stuck on the wording. "You make more than I do. That doesn't answer my question. It's 6 months. Temporary. If I have to take random work immediately, I'll never build momentum." Then he gave me the argument I think he had already rehearsed. We were partners. Partners supported each other. If his business worked, it could eventually benefit both of us. And when I had gone through a brutal stretch at work the previous winter, he had supported me. That part was true. Ryan had cooked more often. He handled groceries for a few weeks. He listened to me complain about a project I hated. He had been there for me, but I had never stopped paying my bills. And I had definitely never redesigned his finances without asking him. "I'm not telling you not to do this," I said. "I'm telling you I didn't agree to finance it." He looked genuinely hurt. That made the conversation harder. If he had laughed or called me selfish, I probably would have become angry faster. Instead he said, "I thought you'd believe in me." That landed. For maybe 15 minutes, I started negotiating against myself. Maybe I could cover more groceries. Maybe I could take the utilities. Maybe we could call it 3 months instead of 6. I was already rearranging my own money to make his decision easier. Then I looked at the spreadsheet again. The camera lens was still there. So was the paid newsletter platform. So were the 2 industry trips. So was a parking membership, because Ryan thought working from the apartment would make him less productive. He had protected the parts of his new life that felt like building a business and moved the boring adult expenses onto me. That was when I stopped negotiating. I opened our banking app and transferred exactly what I transferred every month. My normal contribution, my half. Ryan watched me do it. "That's it, that's my share. What am I supposed to do about mine?" I looked at him. You quit your job, Ryan. I assumed that was part of the plan. He walked away. Rent was due in 12 days, and his 6-month runway did not contain a single line for his half of it. Ryan finished his final days at work and came home Friday with the energy of somebody who had already moved mentally into his new career. Saturday morning, he converted one corner of our second bedroom into a filming setup. Boxes started arriving. By Sunday, he asked if I had reconsidered. I said no. He told me he had already ordered equipment. I asked if he could return it. He said he could, but that would defeat the point of taking the leap. Then don't return it, I said, but you still have to fund your half of our life. For the next week, everything was strained but mostly quiet. We still ate dinner together. We still watched television. We still talked about normal things. Underneath all of it was Ryan waiting for me to become uncomfortable enough to rescue the plan. At one point he said, "You're sitting on savings." I hated that sentence more than almost anything else he said, not because it was false, because it exposed the assumption. My emergency fund had quietly become part of his runway in his head. My savings are not income you can assign, I said. He apologized for how it sounded. He still wanted the money. When rent came due, the household account was short because Ryan still had not transferred his portion. The automatic payment was scheduled for the next morning. That evening, he finally moved the money from his own savings. Afterward, he sat at the kitchen counter staring at his phone. I just wiped out a huge chunk of what I had set aside for launch. I felt guilty. I really did. I knew I could have made the problem disappear in 30 seconds, but I also knew what would happen if I did. The first month would become precedent. Then the second. Then some future expense would be justified because I had already agreed to support the plan. So I said, I know, that was all. During the first month, Ryan worked harder than I had ever seen him work. He posted constantly. He wrote articles. He contacted brands. He rebuilt his website. He had a couple of consulting calls and landed one small project. He was not lazy. That mattered because it would have been easier if he were. His mistake was not wanting something unrealistic. His mistake was deciding my money was one of the resources available to build it. By the second month, the original budget was already breaking down. The sponsorship income he had projected had not appeared. One brand was interested but wanted more audience data. Another offered free products instead of money. His consulting brought in something, but not enough to cover his normal expenses and all the business spending he had planned. Then he told me he needed to attend an industry conference. I asked whether it was already paid for. No. Then he asked whether I would cover his household contribution that month so he could pay for the flight and registration. I said no. Ryan became angry. Not screaming angry, he got very calm. So you're willing to watch this fail over a few bills? No, I'm willing to let you decide what you can afford. That's not how partnership works. I asked him whether partnership meant making a 6-month financial commitment for someone without asking them first. He did not answer. The conference disappeared from the plan. Then the Karking membership disappeared. Then the expensive camera lens went back. His videos did not suddenly become worse because he filmed them with the camera he already owned. I think that bothered him more than he admitted. Part of the dream had included looking like somebody who had already made it. By the third month, the pressure had moved beyond money. Ryan said he felt unsupported. I said I felt volunteered. Neither of us thought the other one understood. There were a few days when I wondered whether refusing the money was worth what it was doing to us. Then Ryan got an email from an old client. They needed help managing a product launch for about 6 weeks. It was not glamorous work. It was exactly the kind of work Ryan had said would distract him from building his brand. He initially turned it down. That night, we were sitting in the living room when he said, "If I take this, I'll barely have time to post." Maybe. He looked at me like he was waiting for the rest. There wasn't any. The next morning, he emailed them back. He took the contract. For 6 weeks, Ryan worked mornings for the client and afternoons on his own content. Some days he hated it. Some days he barely posted. But his share of the household expenses showed up on time, and something unexpected happened. His content got better. Instead of posting 5 rushed things a week, he started posting 2 useful ones. The client work gave him real problems to talk about instead of hypothetical ones. People responded to that. By month 4, someone who had been watching his videos referred him to another small client. It was not enough for Ryan to stop taking paid work. It was enough that the numbers stopped looking impossible. One Saturday morning, I found him at the kitchen table with the original spreadsheet open. He had deleted almost half of it. No conference, no parking membership, no advertising budget for the first year. Equipment spending had been cut almost to nothing. His projected sponsorship income had been replaced by freelance income he actually knew how to earn. And under household expenses, his name was back beside his share. He noticed me looking. This version is less exciting. It looks more real. He nodded. Then he said something I had not expected. I think I was angry because if you covered everything, I wouldn't have to find out whether the idea actually worked. That was probably the closest we ever got to a complete explanation. He apologized for quitting without telling me first. He admitted the spreadsheet had treated my salary like part of his business. He still believed partners should sometimes carry each other financially. So did I. We had never really disagreed about that. We disagreed about consent. 6 months after Ryan quit, he had not become a famous creator. He also had not failed. He had a modest audience, 3 recurring freelance clients, and occasional paid work that came directly from his content. Some months were good, some were not. Eventually, he admitted he preferred the combination anyway. Client work gave him stable income, and the creator side brought him work he actually wanted. We stayed together, although things did not simply snap back to normal. We made the household system even clearer. Our personal savings stayed personal. Any career change that required the other person to cover additional expenses had to be discussed before notice was given, not afterward. And neither of us was allowed to call a unilateral decision support just because the other person could afford it. A few weeks ago, Ryan was updating his budget at the same kitchen table. I walked past and saw a tab labeled runway. For a second, the old irritation came back. Then he turned the laptop toward me. The new version had his business costs, his freelance targets, his savings minimum, and his household contribution. Nothing was assigned to me. At the bottom, he had written one note for himself. Do not build a plan that requires money you have not been offered. That first 6-month budget had been Ryan's attempt to figure out whether he could afford to bet on himself. What neither of us understood at first was that he had written the bet using my money. The second budget was smaller. It was also finally his.